So today we're actually going to be working on a new piece, not a new piece, a new piece for us. I've actually never taught this song in 25 years of doing lessons. This is not a song that I've instructed or taught. It's the song "Cleanse Me." Now, and we've been talking about all this orchestral arranging type songs, and we talk about all the using different wind instruments and strings and vocals and all this other good stuff. And sometimes we forget to cover um, a piece of music that utilizes what these are also really good at, these type of instruments, and that is the organ. All right, these are organs first and foremost. So it's sometimes good to be able to demonstrate these instruments as an organ. Now, I normally try to avoid doing arrangements where our main focus or the instrument sounds like this because one of the stigmas people have with these type of instruments is that, well, it's an organ. I mean, really, do I want to play hymns and church music all the time? So due to that, I almost always try to steer away from it and would teach songs even like that where I'd go, where I'd steer towards a piano and strings or even a choir. Okay. I'm going to apologize right now. My dogs are about to go crazy. Grandma just showed up. And they go really crazy. So if it gets a little loud in the background, I'm sorry. So again, so we have our, so normally I tried, like I said, I try to avoid songs like that, especially songs where it really is, where you really get into the church songs. Or those pipe organ type settings. All right, now because of that, but because we tend to avoid those so much, I think it's actually a good idea that we come and play a song that I think most people will recognize to some degree. Um, but maybe it's not in your normal repertoire of songs. And I happened to be at a customer's house. She's actually in this room. I was at Catherine's house doing a private lesson with her, and she had asked me to create an arrangement for the song "Cleanse Me." And I was like, as I was setting it up, I started really liking what we were doing. And I was like, I think we could actually teach this song and bring it to the group. So that's how we ended up here. And it's also a perfect opportunity to introduce this kind of a different type of organ sound that you might not be as accustomed to. And it does depend on which church you go to, and how you hear church music. As I've, as I explained to Catherine, I mean, I grew up in a church where it was this. Had that very serious pipe organ type sound. But I also played in churches with a buddy while going to school, and it was where it was that fun revival kind of gospel music, and it was a whole different experience having come from one to the other. And of course, there's obviously many different. You could take that same song and take it to a Southern Baptist church. All right. So, so kind of a different experience musically from one church to the other. So then I was like, what would be interesting is if we took the song "Cleanse Me," and I just need to, I actually need the music up in front of me. Sorry. Um, so let me pop that up in the screen so I can see it. So let's say, we could do kind of a standard approach to this where you just take a simple little waltz. Sorry about that. All right, and we could have this nice light little version of the song, if you will. Um, I'm just trying to get this so it's moved down in size so I can see everybody. All right, there we go. So we, it's a nice approach to that kind of song. But then it was like, well, why don't we do it like I arranged it for Catherine? And I ended up going, and it's still a waltz, but this is where I had ended up with her during her private lesson. All right, and give it that that nice little soulful kind of three-quarter time feel to it. All right, but more importantly, use that organ type setting instead of the typical typical approach I would normally do, where I would use an instrument to emulate somebody singing. So that's where we're going to go. Is we're going to start this with a very traditional, or not traditional, but with an approach to the organ, the Hammond organ, if you will. All right. So let me get this out of my way so I can see. Let's go here. So what we're going to do, this first registration, and if you don't have your arrangement guide printed, you can just write these steps down as we go. They're not, there's 10 of them, but none of them are really complicated. um, so the way we're going to start this is with the easy button. That's that one finger chord system. So we're not actually going to be using rhythm to start this. We're going to use the one finger chord system to play chords for us. Actually, excuse me one moment. It got spooky quiet here. It made me think something was wrong. Sorry about that. The dogs were just outside, and Grandma had, I guess, kidnapped David to go shopping or something. All right, so we're going to start with the easy button. And what we're aiming for here is this Hammond organ type sound. All right. Now, So in the on the instruments, most of them it's called organ B, and that's because the Hammond organ um, that was very popular in the churches was actually the Hammond B3, and in some of the churches was the B3. But it stems all the way back to the organs in the 20s and 30s, I believe it was. It was a solution that people wanted an instrument that they could practice for church. And Hammond created this instrument that they could put in your house. It was huge, but you could play just like you could on the cathedral organs, but it was less money. And actually, these instruments became very popular in a lot of the inner city churches. All right. So, a couple shortcuts to get here. Um, you can just, if you have setups, I've touched my easy button over up here, and I just look at all my settings through here, and number 9 gives me all right. So I could use number 9. Number 1 gives us a nice riff. All right. So what I would do is just go through your presets and see which one has a setting that gives you that nice clear sound or crisp. Okay. Of that type of an organ. And you can also physically just, if you have these tabs here in the some of you have a section called ensemble and organ on the right. Some of you have these tabs like this. You could actually literally just touch the tab and create that sound yourself if you wanted. Some of you have a button called jazz. All right. So different ways of coming about the same setup. All right. Now, so our goal here is to start with something very simple that gives us a nice clean sound. Now, the other part of this, we're going to use our right hand harmony. I should have just done a hyphen there, huh? That way that works. So Hammond organ B, and use our right hand harmony duet. Now this raises a big concern. Number one, it might not sound as good at home when I'm playing through these speakers. So just know it does sound good here with this setting. Well, this part won't. Because if I start this song in this low pitch range way down here, if I start way down here, listen to how muddy this gets. And it's really not that pleasant of a sound. This entire song is going to be played 8 VA, 8 Victor Alpha. So at the very beginning of the song, my recommendation would be to do this. Whoops. Is to write 8 VA at the very beginning of the song, because everything we're going to do is going to be based off from playing this song up, up an octave. All right. So what that does is that puts us. All right, so without rhythm on, I can take all the time in the world and play completely rubato and completely free of time with no worries about having to be perfect. And I do hang out on that B flat as long as I can. Now, so that introduction, and that's what that is. It's the way that the organist will introduce the song, so the choir can come in with search, with the word search, and on key with the A. It makes it easier for them to come in. All right. Now let's go here. So that actually is the first registration. We're just going to memorize that to number 1. And memorize A1 for those of you who can memorize. Now, our next stop is I'm going to give a rhythm style that some of you will have. It's going to be in different places. If you don't have this, you're going to substitute any other 3/4 waltz. All right. But tempo is going to be everything. We don't want this song is not supposed to, we don't want it rip-roaring. We're going to play it nice and slow. Now, we're going to stay with that same organ sound we had on before. We still want that jazz Hammond kind of organ sound. And I believe that's, by the way, the tempo is up about 4 or 5 clicks on Soulful, the rhythm style. All right, so we want to still be. Now, if you're using the Soulful rhythm style, what I did is I'm just using my vintage or rhythm preset with no numbers on to get that organ sound. All of the gospel, I think almost all the gospel rhythm styles, or styles on the instrument, utilize an organ of some type, and I love this. This is one of my favorite organ sounds. Okay. Now, the key to this is there's no right-hand harmony in this first registration, in the first part of the song. So, and when I say number 0, for those of you who have it, that means don't have any other numbers on. You just have vintage or rhythm preset, and no right-hand harmony. So if duet stayed on, or any of the other right-hand harmonies come on, we want to get rid of it, because the rest of this is all just an exercise in harmonies coming in and out, and that's pretty much it, and a modulation. All right. So, in fact, if we go through, your right-hand harmony for number 2, the third registration, is going to go back to duet being on. Then our right-hand harmony is going to go to AOC. And then our right-hand harmony will go to, whoop, I put the dash in the wrong spot. A 4-part harmony. And that 4-part harmony is actually very important. 4-part harmony is actually what you normally hear when you're listening to a choir perform. I'm blanking out on a song. I literally had a song in my head a second ago. No, that's oh my Lord. I had something in my head and lost it. But 4-part, instead of it being a melody and a chord like the AOC or 3-part harmony does, 4-part adds this. And it's like having a bass, a tenor, an alto, and a soprano. Now, those of you who have a harmony called hymn on your instrument, it takes this note, moves it down here, and this note, like that, and that's called hymn. And it gives it that very church type sound. But 4-part is a very common one. So that's what 4-part's doing. We just don't have to do all that work because I don't know about y'all, but you probably don't want to have to play both hands on one keyboard while you're trying to play chords at the same time. All right. So, oh, actually, I meant to demonstrate this whole process. Let's go back here, spotlight this video. Whoops. So let's go back here. All right, so this is the register. I'm just trying to get it to focus in real quick. So right now I have just vintage on no number. It's giving me this nice organ sound. And I'm going to memorize that to A2, white, black, memorize. My next stop, again, for third registration is touch my right hand harmony, which on this model, it comes up in the screen. And I want to touch duet, and I then memorize that to A4, white, black, memorize. Now, and then I'm going to wait till the screen goes away, touch AOC, memorize that to A5, white, black, memorize. So this whole thing is just building up the harmonies the entire time.
Which numbers are those?
AOC should be on number 5, I think it is.
Number 4.
Yeah, AOC is on number 4.
Duet is on 3.
Correct. So duet is on 3.
You programmed them differently, those guys.
Did I? I'm glad you said something because I was. So yeah. So duet is on number 3. AOC is on number 4. 4-part will be on number 5. So actually, what's funny is the number that the preset is one number too high for the harmony that's being used because AOC is 3. All right. But everything that we're doing is using those right-hand harmonies. Now, some of you don't have 4-part. If you don't have 4-part, you could substitute block harmony. Block harmony is one of the 4 parts. All right. So if we've done this right, let me just double check. Yes. So I did it right somehow. So I'll show you what this does and how this can be really neat. I'm just going to play an F chord and an F note in the melody. And what's going to happen when I add duet, it's going to go and do this. When I add AOC, it's going to go from this. And 4-part. And you'll notice it just makes the sound richer, fuller, and a little bit darker. All right, because when you get to that lower, remember the harmony it's playing is off from these notes, so that's why we have to be up an octave. There's actually another reason. I'm going to demonstrate this a little bit later, but I don't want to yet. Okay, all right. Now, when we go to number 6, we are going to modulate up to C sharp. Now, the reason I wrote it that way first is I wanted to make sure it's clear. That is that transpose feature. I was going to say, I bet if I take those quotation marks out, it'll fit. So modulate by transposing up to C sharp. Now, even if you're on the EZ4, you can do this. You have to do it through the feature button to be able to modulate. So you would have to have that screen readily available to do it. But you do have a transpose feature within your feature button. On some of the instruments, most of the instruments, it's an external button that you can touch. So that's going to be the first step, and that's just taking it from this and moving it up. All right, and we're going to de-amplify this, which technically is not a real word for what we're doing, but it makes sense. We're going to turn our right-hand harmony off. We're going to go back to the lighter registration for when we start back over. So I moved my transpose feature up over here, and then I went over to the right-hand harmony, wherever it is on your instrument. I'm trying to get it to focus in better. And I touched that right-hand harmony off. That's all I had to do. Whatever that purple button is that you have on last, that just turn it off. All right. And now we're all right. So it just back to that nice clean sound that we had on before. That becomes number 6. And we go white, black, memorize. And guess what's going to happen? Anybody want to take a stab what the next registrations are going to be? We're just literally repeating the harmony stuff. So number 7, we're going to touch our harmony back on to duet, memorize that to A7, white, black. Touch our AOC, memorize that to A8. That's alpha 8. And then I'm going to use 4-part harmony and memorize that to A9, white, black. Memorize. Now, before we write down step 10, I did put step 10 here for y'all, but it's not going to be. I want to give you guys a couple choices. So now we get to the end of the song. And we need to end the song because, again, I say this probably 5,000 times a year between private lessons, between talking about recitals, between every single class. You get to the end of the song and you've worked your tail off to get there and as good as you can get it done. Right? And you finally get to the end. Oh. And then you stop the rhythm and it's this awkward end. And that's one of my biggest pet peeves is you've done all that work to get to that point and you don't finish the song. So what I'm going to recommend is that you come up with a way to end it. And what I would recommend is one of three options because we're using rhythm. Either you're going to use one, well, you could use an ending 1, an ending 2, or you can hit the stop button. The problem with all of those is, let's say we're able to have you all in the store and you're playing and let's say you're playing like Kathy Stanley, you're playing on a Legend, but I have an Inspire in front of you. So you get to the end of the song and you've worked your tail off. and you go to hit the stop button, but you hit the fill button instead, or you hit an ending instead of the stop button. So I always recommend programming whatever my last preset was, one more preset with one of the options. Now, the options are this. I could use an ending. Let's listen to ending 1. All right. It's a fun ending. I like playing with it, but it's kind of long. And the end of the song didn't. This song didn't really scream for that jazzy of an ending, right? Okay, well, let's try ending 2. I love that. All right, much more mellow. But again, we did this ending with the chords I played. It wasn't necessary to do an ending. So my recommendation for this song is actually turn off the rhythm style. And simply, that means go over to your rhythms that are on, and whatever's lit, turn it off, and then memorize that to A10. And the reason we do that is so I don't miss the stop button when I go up to hit, where you get to the end of a song. And I hit the ending instead of that. So I put it in number 10, and I use my left hand to hit the change. That's the one time you use your left hand all the time, at the end of a song. And here's why. If I were to, I'm going to use the ending. Because I'm holding that chord down, the ending won't start. Until I let go, it's not going to start. And it won't start until the downbeat of a measure. So let's say I accidentally held it for one beat too long, like this. We still had that awkward moment of nothing. Okay? So the left hand. Okay, so we use our left hand for the ending. Either it's going to go up, hit stop, it's going to go up, touch ending 2 or 1, or it's going to touch the next preset, which in this case would be number 10, which would sound like this. And it gives it that, we're done. And you can have an amen at that point. Amen. All right. Now, so the arrangement is all just an exercise in harmony, and hearing how just something as simple as using a right hand harmony can create this big full registration without doing anything with the actual instrument, with the melodic instruments. Now, in the intermediate class, I am going to be intermediate and advanced class. I'm covering a similar approach, but we are developing it more over there. It will make sense. Those of you who want to cross over to hear that arrangement, remember there will be no classes this Tuesday. We're dropping David off at a college tomorrow because he's carless, because his car died. Yeah, the car's this. Jody's laughing because I was at her house when I got one of the phone calls. So, but anyways, So we have to drop him off at college up at Utica tomorrow. So there'll be no classes on Tuesday, but they will be. I just took everything from Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and moved everything over one day. So what was Tuesday is on Wednesday. What was on Wednesday is on Thursday. What's on Thursday is on Friday. There will be no private lessons on those days this week because of obviously the unless it's around those times before or after them, because obviously we'll be, you know, teaching a class. All right. That class on Friday at 11. I don't care if you're the most beginner of my students. It's continuing the discussion of musical elements. It's a very important class. If you did not see that class on Thursday last week, send me an email. I'll send you a YouTube link to the class, to the original class, because we talked a lot about chords. Another warm up that we added for the more advanced classes, you can ignore that one. We did talk about how chords are developed, or the hand positionings, all that kind of stuff. Even though we don't really care if you play full chord. Sometimes you do need to know the chord. Okay. Now, all right. So that back to that harmony discussion. So if you take a song, I don't want to play that. I started to play a song and then realized it's not what I wanted to play. We'll do that. We'll go back to Just a Closer Walk with You. By adding duet, four part. All right, so same song, just by adding more harmony, it adds a fuller, richer sound. Now, let's go back to the music because there's a couple other details that we need to cover still. First of all, you will notice, let's talk about these repeats and everything. You'll notice you have these dots on the right side of a double bar line. All right. So these double dots on the right side are telling me this is where you go back to. This song has, on the second page, we have a first, second, and third ending. So the first time you get to this measure, in fact, let's not do that. Let's put a star here. First time I get here, we go to the first ending. Then we get to these dots and they tell me to go back. Now, we did not do as many registrations as you would need to be able to play this song the 3 full times. All right. So what I would do is just go back to number 6. When you touch number 6, you go back. So first time you get here, you go back to here. So you're now the second time through, and you get to this spot. Second time, we jump to the second ending. Well, the second ending is the same as the first ending, and then you would get to here. I would touch number 6 again, and we go back to here. Well, actually, that should have been there. That's gooder. All right. So now you're now playing this the third time, and you go all the way through this song to this same spot a third time, and now you jump to the ending. I know that's a lot of squiggly lines there for you. But just and this is something that always confuses people when you have first, second, and third endings. Just remember, and if you're the first time through a song, use the first ending, second time, second, third, third. But even if you did get lost, let's say you accidentally the third time came in here again, well, then you'd run into this and you'd end up playing that again. So if you keep on doing that, you would end up playing the song too many times, and because it's a very repetitive song, it would get monotonous. All right. Now, I do want to make a little change at the end of the song. I'm going to add a little chord because I can. While you're holding that F down, you're going to add the F sharp chord in between it. So you're going to go B flat, okay? It adds this little discord at the end that resolves nicely out of the amen. Instead of doing a traditional amen, okay? Now, there's a little detail that you might not pick up on unless you're watching what I did. So this is the left hand. This is not the proper fingering, by the way, Kathy. I see you thinking, oh, I can just use my index the whole song. No. So instead of just going to the stop or number 10, what I did was I used the FX or the fill while I'm playing, while I'm there. I go. And you'll notice it adds a little bit of excitement or a little fill at the end to tie us into the ending. Okay. This type of ending, I like this chord progression because it instead of just being sweet and simple, it adds a little discord. And if you want, you can change to the A instead of the F at the end too. All right. Okay. So we end up going up to the A at the very end instead of the F if you want. So it's. And if you can time it right to the downbeat when you touch number 10, you'll notice that the cymbal crashes too. So all these little details for the end of the song are such important little details, but they make a big, big difference. All right, now while we're sitting here, I want to have y'all see the left hand. A couple little nuances of my left hand, and I'm going to move my left hand up here just so you can see it better. So remember, when we have chords that connect one note from, if you have a note from a chord that you're on going to the next chord and it's part of it, it does not make sense to lift up. For example, going from a B flat to a G minor, it doesn't make sense to lift off and come back G and B flat. All right? It makes more sense to do this. Just add the G, So when you have shared notes between chords, make sure we're holding them. So B flat to G minor, that's going to happen. From A minor to C7, instead of lifting up and having to come back down with two notes, here's the change from A minor to C7. This A becomes a B flat. So B flat to G minor, A minor to C7. Now obviously F to F7, because we're already holding the F. Now F to D minor. Now watch this, I'll show you a little trick. From F to D minor to G7, I actually just never let go of the note before. So I'm playing F chord, I add the D, then I go to the G chord. Alright, and that gives me F, D minor, and then G7. Alright, so watch that progression again. And the reason I can get away with going F to D minor and just adding the G is because the notes of a G7 chord are F, G, and it adds this B and D for me automatically. So you'll notice there's no difference in the sound. That's because it's adding those notes for me. So that D from the D minor, that D and the F are all part of the G7. Now for C7, I just leave the G down. It leaves me anchored. Okay. So little secrets about the chords. This stepping the chord thing is such an important element of making our left hand easier to play. So instead of having to come up and play two, I'm just adding one. That'll make playing some of these more advanced chords easier. And as Kathy said, if we can make it easier, it's much better. I was going to say gooder, but she would not say gooder. Well, unless she was mocking me or mimicking, not mocking. You know what I meant. Maybe a little bit of mocking too. I like the word gooder. Ever since I heard George W. say it that one time during a speech, it's been... And you'll hear people in the South sometimes do that too. And being from Texas, I have some habits from that are still there. Okay, this technique of using the notes that are shared makes the more advanced chords so much easier to play. So if we can get this mastered on easier chords, you know. It will make such a big difference. All right, I'm going to play this for y'all. I'm only going to play it one time through. So I'm not going to do the actual repeat. I'm just going to go. I'm going to start on number one, but go right to the third ending. And if you want to add little ad-libs, feel free. And that's why you program it in a preset, so you don't miss like I just did. And that was not intentional. I just looked up as I was hitting the button. Now, there was something I was going to point. Oh, yes. I'm going to start back where registration 5 is. One of the things, you'll notice the G7 says it plays right at the beginning. We can still step through the G7 chord. And I'm going to turn off the rhythm just so you can really hear this clearly. All right, so it's telling me to jump right on that G7 chord. What I'm going to recommend is that you play the G by itself and then add the F a beat later. So like this. And same thing with the C7 chord. You don't have to jump right into it. The reason I like stepping the chord is it adds another layer of movement to the melody. In fact, one thing, you might have caught it the first time I played this. I go to the F7 early in the page 2, line 2, third measure. Because I like that move to the F7 early, just to build up what's coming. Now, if I really wanted to be tricky, but we're not going to be mean like that. Not today. All right. Any questions for us?